Hello, I'm Steve Shaw, National Coordinator of Football Officials and Secretary of Rules Editor for the NCAA. And today we're continuing our series of media videos for 2023, and we're going to be focused on game action from Week 8. Now, I want to take a moment before we get into our video and report out on our fouls per game. Through 8 weeks of the season, we're averaging 14.1 fouls per game, and that's down about 1/2 of a foul per game from this time last year. So where's that coming from, especially since offensive holding is slightly up 0.2 fouls per game this year? But believe it or not, false start is our number one call, and we've made over 1,300 false start calls this year. But compared to this time last year, we were over 1,500 false start calls. So that makes up more than half of the reduction that we've had this year. Now, unsportsmanlike conduct and personal fouls have been very consistent year over year. So the balance of the reduction comes from 3 areas: illegal blindside blocks, blocks in the back, and defensive pass interference. Those 3 are all slightly down, and coupled with the bigger reduction in false starts. That's why we're averaging 1/2 foul less per game this year. But it's something we'll continue to monitor as we go through the balance of our season. So with that, let's get straight on into our plays. Our first play this week, the offense punts, and the receiver moves to get into position to make the catch, and he calls for a fair catch. Now, the receiver muffs the ball, and kicking team player number 80, he's going to grab the kick and start back toward the end zone, but we know the kickers cannot advance a kick, and so the ball is declared dead when number 80 gains possession. Now, we see the officials come together to discuss the play, and we're going to get a late flag for kick-catch interference. By rule, there's a big difference on this play if the receiver gives a valid fair catch signal, as he did here, or not. So if the receiver does give a signal, then he gets an unimpeded opportunity to catch the kick even after he muffs it. And we see here number 80 took the ball when the receiver still had an opportunity to make the catch. So this is a correct call for kick-catch interference, and the penalty is enforced 15 yards from the spot of the foul, and the receivers keep the ball 1st and 10. If there would have been no valid fair catch signal here, then the kick-catch interference protection ends for the receiver when the kick hits the ground or the receiver's touch or muff the kick. So without a signal here, it would have been legal for number 80 to possess this ball. Play 2, and we had much discussion about this play this week. We see late in the game, the offense punts. The kick is going to land about midfield and bounces high. Receiver number 3 recovers the kick, spins, runs down the sideline, cuts back across field, and is going to go all the way to the end zone. Now, the ruling on the field is touchdown, but replay is going to come in to stop the game for further review. Now, initially, folks thought that replay was looking to see if the return man stepped out of bounds, but replay was looking at the signaling by the receiver number 3. By rule, the player can point at a kick as long as there's no waving motion and the hands stay at or below the shoulder level, but any waving motion by the receiver is considered an invalid fair catch signal, and when the receivers possess the ball after any waving motion, the ball is dead at that point and no return allowed. And we see number 3, he comes across the field, he points with his right hand. That's okay, but the left hand has a clear waving motion. So replay reviews this and determines there is waving motion. It's an invalid fair catch signal. So the ball is declared dead at the 46 where number 3 possessed it. And this was correctly done by replay. And remember, the purpose of the fair catch provision is to protect the receiver who, by using the fair catch signal, agrees that they or a teammate will not advance the ball after the catch. Any waving motion that does not meet the parameters of a valid fair catch signal is considered an invalid signal, and that signal does not allow advance by the receiving team as well. And this is in place so kicking team players coming down the field, they don't have to sort out the signal. If they see waving motion, they know that the receiving team cannot advance the ball. Play 3, we get a handoff to 0. He's going to run around left end near the boundary, and he's out of bounds short of the line to gain where there's extra action. Now, we see that there are 2 flags down on the play, and the referee's going to come over to discuss with the crew. And as we go back and take a look at the action, we're going to see that the defender, number 11, he's going to grab the face mask of the ball carrier while the ball carrier is still inbounds. And then number 15 of the defense is going to hit zero after zero is out of bounds and he's giving himself up. Now, we may get a little bit of a flop action by zero, but the contact by the defense was enough to warrant a dead ball personal foul here. So there are 2 fouls on the defense. Now, if there are multiple live ball fouls by one team, like the defense here, then their opponents can enforce only one of the live ball penalties. But since here there's a live ball face mask and then a dead ball personal foul, both penalties can be enforced, the one live ball foul and then the dead ball foul. And so we're going to have 2 15-yard penalties after the play that move the ball 30 yards downfield from the out-of-bounds spot, which was the minus 34, all the way to the 36-yard line going in. Play 4, I want to have a discussion about players' equipment. And specifically, players are not allowed to wear any equipment that could endanger other players, any hard or abrasive, unyielding equipment, and that includes hand or arm protectors, casts, and splints, unless it is in place to protect an injury and is subject to approval by our umpire. Now, the rules are specific that any hard or unyielding equipment, it must be completely covered and padded and presented to the umpire for approval before the game. And it should pose no risk to other players. So typically the umpire, when they approve this equipment, they'll also discuss with the player not to use the padded device in any way as to endanger another player. So we see number 11, his setup is to protect his hand injury, and he was approved by the umpire here, and he actually played in the game. Play 5, we have a 3rd and 1 situation. The quarterback's going to roll to the right, continues to roll almost all the way to the boundary, and is going to flip the ball to receiver 84, who makes the catch for a first down, and then he's going to drive forward for extra yardage. Now, typically, our officials will get a hat down if a receiver goes out of bounds, but there were no hats down on this play. But as we can see from the first replay, it appears number 84 does briefly go out of bounds. So replay is going to stop the game for review. Now, the first down pylon camera gives us a great view of the action, and we can see that 84, he does go out of bounds on his own. He reestablishes inbounds and makes the catch. But if the receiver goes out of bounds on his own and then he's the first to touch the pass, then it is a foul for illegal touching, and the penalty for that foul is loss of down at the previous spot. Now, if the defender were to force the receiver out of bounds, they can immediately return in bounds and not lose their eligibility. But here, this is a good job by replay to create the illegal touching. The player did go out of bounds on his own, and this is one of the 8 fouls that can be created by replay. Our last play this week is a bit unusual. Now, we see it's late in the fourth quarter. The offense is down 3 points, and they throw inside the 30-yard line, but the pass is going to be intercepted by number 12 of the defense. Now, we have multiple flags down on the play, and the crew is going to come together to discuss what happened after the play, and we get a good announcement by our referee.
The result of the play is an interception. After the play was over, unsportsmanlike conduct, Pittsburgh number 3, pulling an opponent off the pile. That penalty is enforced half the distance to the goal. Also after the play, unsportsmanlike conduct, Pittsburgh number 3, his second of the game. That penalty will also be enforced half the distance to the goal, and number 3 is ejected.
Now, as we go back and take a look at the replay, we see that defensive back, number 3, he's going to come in and pull offensive receiver, number 80, literally just drags him off the pile, and that's a foul for unsportsmanlike conduct. Usually we see an immediate reaction by the player being pulled off the pile, but number 80 was injured on the play and no reaction. But then we see number 3, he bumps into number 30, and then he aggressively charges him. The side judge does a good job of separating the players and getting the marker out for number 3's second unsportsmanlike conduct foul on the play. So we know that since both of these are dead ball fouls, we're going to penalize both. And since the 2 unsportsmanlike conduct fouls are charged to number 3, even though they're on the same play, that's 2 for the game. And so number 3 is ejected, and he must leave the team area. Well, that's it for our video this week, and I hope you find these plays helpful, and your feedback is always appreciated. And as we enter week 9, all games seem to increase in their competitive nature and magnitude, and that means all officiating decisions become critical. It's just the nature of our game. Best of luck to all this week.